What's going on? I'm Austin, and today, why not try turning this simple cube storage into an end table with a little mid-century modern vibe?
This is a great starter project and doesn't require too many tools. Just some simple pine boards along with a miter saw and nail gun if you want to speed things up. If you're upcycling a piece of old furniture like I am, the stakes are pretty low. If you mess up, it's simple enough to remove the board and cover up your mistake with the new board. Give your design some thought. Do you want your boards to be equal widths or randomized like I chose to do here? The benefit is you can use any scraps of wood you have left over, or simply use standardized sizes you can pull off the shelf and keep down your number of cuts. Start by removing any plugs or caps that might stick out on your piece, so your boards can lay nice and flat. Next, I grabbed some measurements, making sure to add the width of any boards that overlapped. I used 3/4 inch wide pine, so for instance, I needed to add 1.5 inches to the lengths of my top boards. You'll also want to decide if you want your boards flush to the face of the end table or slightly set forward, creating what's called a reveal. The simplest layout would be to use a butt joint, where the boards are simply pushed together, but I decided to cut the corners at 45 degrees to hopefully create a more seamless edge. Once you have your measurements, I used the miter saw to roughly cut my boards to size, leaving them about 1 inch long. This made them easier to handle. I had just replaced the blade on my table saw, so I decided to use it to cut each of my 45-degree corners. Once those were done, I was able to line those corners up and check my measurements on the actual piece. Seeing that they were nice and tight, I then marked the ends of the boards and squared them off flush at the bottom.
I gotta come clean about something. Cut this board, this one, too short, doesn't fit, and I don't have a long enough piece to go all the way across the top. So I'm just gonna slice in another piece, match it up, fill that space, and glue them together. I have a feeling it'll be fine.
Yep, so nobody's perfect. It's better to leave your boards too long and make multiple cuts until it's snug. Otherwise, you might be making another run to the lumberyard. After you removed any dust, it's time to glue your boards. I went ahead and clamped the first set in place while I made sure it was perfect, using the edge of the square to create an even reveal all the way around. This will ensure the rest of your boards line up as well. I decided to use 1.25 brad nails, 2 at the top, middle, and bottom to pin the boards in place while the glue dried for extra support. As I added my widest piece, I realized there was a slight gap, but we'll take care of that in a minute. Next, I added some wood filler to all those holes. The directions call for a 2-hour dry time, but I just waited 60 minutes and sanded smooth. Looking back, be sure to remove as much wood filler around the holes as possible. It doesn't accept stain the same way your boards will. If you do end up with a gap in your mitered joints, you can close it down using a rounded tool. I then smoothed it out with a sanding sponge and sandpaper. To make sure the seams between my boards were nice and smooth, I hit them with a belt sander. It's not completely necessary, but can be useful if you find any ridges between the boards. After that, clean off any sawdust and prep for stain. If you're using pine like I was, first use a pre-stain. It only needs to sit for 15 minutes, but it will help open up the wood, allowing it to accept the stain more evenly. Finally, using a rag, I wiped on the stain, being sure to follow the grain. You can use a brush, rubber gloves, and a rag will give you the most control. Let it dry overnight, then apply 2 to 3 coats of polyurethane. I like to use a foam brush to keep any brush strokes from showing up. After that dries, you're ready to enjoy.
Hey, I hope this was helpful. It's a really cool technique for upcycling cheap old furniture into something substantial. There's a lot of other places you can probably use this same technique, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe because there'll be a lot more DIYs and how-tos coming soon. Thanks for watching.